My dad and stepmom changed my locks to seize my cabin for my divorced stepbrother, but when I fought back, their worst nightmare came true. The morning fog always lingered a bit longer up in the mountains, wrapping my cabin in a soft gray stillness that made it feel like the rest of the world didn't exist. I liked it that way. My name is Jason. I'm 28 years old, single, and I live alone in the cabin my mom left me when she died 5 years ago. It's tucked just outside Nederland, Colorado, close enough to town when I need it, far enough to disappear when I don't. The cabin isn't big. 2 bedrooms, a fireplace that creaks when it's cold, and wood-paneled walls that smell like cedar and old books. But to me, it's everything. It's my sanctuary, and it's all I have left of her. When Mom passed, she made sure the cabin was mine. There wasn't a trust fund or family fortune, just this place. I've kept it the way she left it. The kitchen tile she picked out during her chemo treatments, the porch swing we built the summer before she got sick, the hummingbird feeder that still draws visitors like clockwork every May. Sometimes, I catch myself talking to her, not out loud, but in my head, like if I focus hard enough, maybe I'll hear her humming in the kitchen again. I try not to think about Dad much. He moved on fast after Mom died. Within a year, he was remarried to a woman named Marcy, a woman I barely know and never liked. She came with her own baggage, a son named Dylan, 3 years younger than me, with a smug grin and a never-ending supply of bad decisions. Dylan and I were never close. He's the kind of guy who always had things handed to him, charm without effort, confidence without consequence. He wrecked 2 cars by the time he was 20, dropped out of college, and somehow always landed on his feet. Marcy and Dad made sure of that. Me? I was the resilient one, the one who didn't need attention because I had it together. So I built a quiet life. I work as a wildlife conservation officer with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Department. Most days, I'm out in the field, checking on animal populations, setting trail cams, managing reforestation projects. It's hard work, but I love it. And more importantly, it keeps me out of the family mess. Or at least, it used to. A couple weeks ago, I found out Dylan was getting divorced. Again, his wife had finally had enough. Can't say I blame her. But here's the kicker. She's pregnant. So now, Dylan's about to be a single dad. And suddenly, Dad's acting like he's got something to prove. Like Dylan's redemption arc is his to orchestrate. At first, I figured it'd blow over. But then Dad started calling more, offering to catch up, asking how the cabin was holding up. He even hinted at needing a serious conversation soon. And that's when I knew. They were coming for the cabin. This place isn't just real estate. It's my home, my peace, the only part of my mother I still have. And if they think I'm going to hand it over to Dylan like some charity handout, they've got another thing coming. Let the war begin. I hadn't seen my dad in over a year, so when he texted asking if I could come down for a family talk, my gut clenched. He lived in a high-rise condo in Denver now, all glass windows and shiny floors, the kind of place that smells like new leather and old money. I hadn't even pulled off my boots before I knew something was off. Marcy answered the door like she'd been waiting for a guest of honor. "Jason," she said with a too-sweet smile. "You look rugged." I didn't bother faking a smile. Dad came up behind her, clapped me on the back like we were pals, and gestured toward the couch. "Let's talk in the living room." I stepped in and saw Dylan already there, slouched in a designer armchair like he owned the place. His hair was slicked back, and he was wearing one of those half-zip sweaters that rich guys wear when they want to seem humble. He barely looked at me, just gave this little nod like I was late to a meeting he didn't want to have. Dad cleared his throat and sat across from me, hands folded like he was pitching a merger. "We wanted to talk to you about the cabin," he said. Just like that. No warm-up. I froze. "What about it?" Marcy jumped in, all polished sympathy. "Well, honey, with Dylan becoming a father now, a surprise blessing," Dad cut in, smiling at Dylan like he just announced he was going to the moon. "Right," Marcy continued. "We all feel that it might make sense for him to move into the cabin. It's quiet, safe, perfect for a child. And, well, you're single, and you've had it for a while now." I blinked. "You're joking." Dad raised his palms. "Look, we're not saying you haven't earned your peace out there, but Dylan's life is changing. He needs a fresh start." "I already had one," Dylan said, finally speaking. "The cabin would be good for the baby. You know, clean air, nature, whatever." I stared at him. "You don't even like nature." He shrugged. "I could." I turned back to Dad. "So let me get this straight. You want me to move out of the home Mom left me, the only thing I have from her, so Dylan can play mountain dad for a few months until he gets bored?" Dad flinched, but tried to keep his tone neutral. "It's just a logical solution, Jason. You don't have a family. You can find another place. You could even stay in town closer to work." Marcy nodded along. "We'll help with the logistics. It's not personal." "It's absolutely personal," I snapped. "You're saying my life, my home, matters less because I'm not married with a kid on the way?" They all stared at me like I just said something impolite. Dylan leaned back, arms crossed, that smug smirk creeping in. He'd already decided it was happening, like it was inevitable. I stood up. "No." Dad blinked. "Jason." "No," I said louder. "The cabin is mine. End of story." Marcy tilted her head. "You're being unreasonable." "No," I repeated. "I'm being clear." I walked out, leaving the 3 of them in stunned silence. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone and deleted Dad's message thread. They thought I'd roll over. Again, not this time. The first text came the next morning. "Dad, I know yesterday was emotional. Let's revisit the idea with calmer heads. It's about family, son. I didn't reply. By the end of the week, I was getting 2 or 3 messages a day. Articles about the importance of supporting new parents, links to tiny homes for sale near Boulder, and long, guilt-drenched paragraphs from Marcy about what your mother would have wanted. They didn't stop there. One day I got home from work and found 2 boxes on the porch. Baby gear, diapers, a foldable crib. No note, no explanation, but I didn't need one. I hauled them to the edge of the property, set them next to the trash bins, and left them there until the next pickup. 3 days later, Dylan showed up in person. He pulled into my driveway in a brand new SUV, like this was some social call. I was in the middle of unloading supplies from the truck when I heard him slam the car door and call out, "Yo." I didn't turn around. "What the hell are you doing here?" He jogged up, sunglasses on, latte in hand. "Just thought I'd swing by. Check out the place again. You know, visualize." I dropped the box of feed harder than I meant to. "Visualize what?" He smiled, smug as ever. "How I'll set up the nursery. Figured the front bedroom gets nice morning light, right?" I took 2 steps toward him. "Get in your car and leave." He raised his hands in mock surrender. "Chill, man. I'm just trying to plan ahead. It's not like this is permanent, just until the baby's old enough to travel." I stared at him in disbelief. "You really think this is happening?" He shrugged. "Everyone seems to think it makes sense. I mean, come on, you don't even have a dog. What do you need all this space for?" I couldn't decide if I wanted to punch him or laugh. "You're not getting the cabin," I said slowly. "I don't care what Dad or Marcy promised you. This place is mine. It was Mom's. You have no claim to it." He gave a short chuckle and turned back toward his car. "We'll see." I watched him drive away, dust kicking up behind him. My fist clenched so hard my knuckles ached. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just family drama anymore. This was a campaign. The text got worse, more dramatic. Dad started calling late at night, leaving voicemails with tired sighs and sad appeals. "Don't do this to your brother, Jason. He needs help." Marcy even showed up unannounced one Saturday with a casserole and some condescending smile about how a baby really changes everything. I didn't open the door. I watched them from behind the curtain until they gave up. My closest friend, Rob, came by that night with beer and a folding chair. "They're testing your walls," he said. "You'd better start building fences." He was right. I could feel it. They were just getting started. But so was I. It happened on a Wednesday. I'd been in the field all day, tracking an injured mountain lion that had wandered too close to a nearby trail system. 12 hours, no breaks, and a radio that barely worked. When I pulled up to the cabin around 8 p.m., all I wanted was a hot shower, a stiff drink, and to sleep like a rock. But something felt wrong the second I stepped out of the truck. There was a note taped to the door. I stared at it for a second before peeling it off, already feeling my chest tighten. "For safety reasons, we've taken temporary control of the property to prepare it for the baby's arrival. Please call us to discuss further. Love, Dad and Marcy." I tried the doorknob. It didn't budge. The locks were changed. For a minute, I just stood there, not moving, not breathing. The air was too still, too quiet. My cabin, my home, and I couldn't get inside. They did this. They actually did this. I dialed my dad's number, heart thudding in my ears. He picked up on the second ring, like he'd been waiting for the call. "Jason, you changed the locks?" I said. My voice was low, deadly calm. He let out a long breath. "Look, I didn't want to do it like this, but you weren't being reasonable. We needed to make sure the place was ready. The baby's due soon, and Dylan, you trespassed," I said, cutting him off. "You broke into my house and changed the locks." "It's not like that," he said quickly. "We didn't break anything. We had the keys from when your mother—" "You used her keys?" My voice cracked, and for a second, I had to look away from the porch just to keep from losing it. "You used Mom's keys to steal her house from me?" "It's temporary," he said. "We just need a little time to make arrangements. Don't be dramatic." I could hear Marcy in the background, saying something about curtains. I gripped the phone tighter. "You have 24 hours to return my keys and reverse every single thing you did, or I call the sheriff." "Jason, be reasonable." "No." I snapped. "You picked the wrong person to mess with. You thought I'd just roll over and hand it to you. You don't know me at all." Then I hung up. I drove to the nearest motel, a dumpy place off the highway with flickering lights and scratchy towels. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at the little desk by the window, scrolling through every legal document I had saved on my laptop. The will, the deed, the notarized letter my mother wrote me 6 weeks before she died, just to make sure I understood how much the cabin meant to her and to me. The next morning, I called a locksmith and scheduled a full security upgrade. By noon, the locks were changed again. Cameras were installed, motion sensors, smart alerts tied to my phone. And just like that, whatever sliver of trust one had left for my father evaporated. He crossed the line. Now I was drawing one of my own. The first thing I did the next day was call Rachel. She'd been Mom's lawyer, sharp, no nonsense, and the only person I trusted with something this important. By noon, I was sitting across from her in her office, a modest space with filing cabinets, soft lighting, and a faint smell of coffee and printer toner. "You did the right thing calling me," she said, flipping through the manila folder I'd brought with all the property documents. "Your mother's will was airtight. The cabin is legally yours, Jason, period." I nodded, but my chest was still tight. "They changed the locks on me, Rachel. They used the spare keys from Mom's drawer, like it was theirs to take." She pursed her lips. "That's not just morally wrong. It's illegal. If you want to press charges for unlawful entry or property interference, you'd have a case." I leaned forward. Can we make it stop? I need this to end before it escalates. Rachel gave a small smile and pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose. We'll start with a cease and desist letter. I'll also file a notice of interest with the county. That way, if they try anything with the title or attempt to list the property under someone else's name, you'll get flagged immediately. I let out a long breath. For the first time in days, I felt like I wasn't cornered. But Rachel wasn't finished. There's something else you need to know. She turned her screen toward me, showing an email thread dated a few months after Mom passed. Your father reached out to our office 5 years ago. He wanted to contest the will. My stomach dropped. What? She nodded. He asked about claiming the cabin as joint marital property. Tried to argue that your mother lacked mental capacity near the end. We declined to assist. Your mother had already arranged everything well in advance. But he tried. More than once. I sat back in the chair, dizzy. So he's been planning this for years. Rachel's voice softened. I'm sorry, Jason. He never accepted that she left it to you alone. I didn't say anything for a while. My mind spun through every memory I had of Dad. His sudden distance after the funeral. The way he kept saying, you'll figure something out. When I told him I wanted to stay in the cabin, it all made sense now. He never saw it as mine. He always thought it would be his to manage, to distribute, to give away. That night, I went back to the cabin and walked every inch of it, checked the new locks, tested the sensors, installed floodlights on the porch, added a title monitoring service through the county to track any legal inquiries about the property. Then I sat by the fireplace, the same place Mom used to drink her tea every morning, and stared at the embers. This wasn't just about the cabin anymore. It was about who my father really was, what he was capable of, and how far I'd go to protect the last thing my mother left me. He made his move. Now it was my turn. I didn't call first. I didn't warn him. I drove straight to his condo in Denver on a quiet Saturday morning, walked through the lobby without a word, and took the elevator up to the 15th floor. When he opened the door and saw me standing there, his smile flickered like a faulty light switch. Jason, we need to talk, I said. My voice was steady, but I could feel the anger simmering just under my skin. He stepped aside and let me in. The place looked exactly like I remembered, clean, expensive, and completely impersonal. Marcy wasn't home, thank God. Just us. I didn't sit down. You tried to contest the will. He blinked, and for a moment, I saw something crack in his face. He covered it quickly. That was years ago. Just a conversation with a lawyer. No, I said firmly. You tried to take the cabin the moment Mom died. You just couldn't admit it then. So you waited. You smiled, nodded when I said I wanted to live there. And now, after 5 years, you think you can hand it off to Dylan like it's yours to give. It's more complicated than that. It's really not. I cut in. You went behind my back. You changed the locks. You used Mom's key. Do you even hear yourself? He held up a hand, trying to stay calm. Jason, I did what I thought was best. Dylan's about to be a father. He's struggling. He needs help. I laughed bitterly. No, you need him to succeed. You want to feel like you still have a shot at fixing your legacy. You couldn't be there for me. So now you're banking everything on Dylan. He frowned. That's not fair. What's not fair? I snapped, stepping closer, is that you watch me build a life in that cabin, and the first time Dylan stumbles again, you try to rip it out from under me. That cabin was Mom's. She left it to me. You don't get to rewrite that just because you think he deserves a fresh start. He looked away, jaw tight. I'm done, I said. No more calls. No more texts. You've shown me exactly who you are. And I'm not going to stand here and pretend we're still family when all you've done is treat me like an obstacle. He exhaled hard, defensive. I did what I thought was right. No, I said quietly. You did what was easy. I walked to the door, but paused before I opened it. If Dylan wants a place to raise his kid, he can figure it out on his own, just like I did. But he's not getting my home. And then I left. I didn't look back, because there was nothing left to see. It was a Sunday afternoon, just after lunch, when I heard the knock. I'd just finished refilling the bird feeder out back. The hummingbirds were back early this year. I like to think Mom would have smiled at that. When I opened the front door, I wasn't surprised. Not really. Dylan was standing on the porch, holding a car seat in one hand and a diaper bag slung over his shoulder. Marcy stood beside him, dressed like she was going to brunch in downtown Boulder, not hiking up a gravel road into the mountains. And behind them, of all people, was my father. The air went still. Jason, Dad started, his voice unusually soft. We need to talk. I didn't answer. I just leaned against the door frame and waited. Dylan shifted the car seat a little and tilted it toward me. This is Ava, he said, like he expected me to melt. I didn't. The baby was asleep, tiny fists tucked under her chin. Innocent, unaware of the circus she'd been born into. We wanted you to meet her, Marcy said quickly. And we thought maybe you'd reconsider. I raised an eyebrow. Reconsider what? Handing over my house? Dad stepped forward, lowering his voice like this was some sacred moment. Jason, come on. She's your niece. Look at her. She deserves a good start, a safe home. You've got that. Dylan doesn't. That's not my problem, I said flatly. Dylan let out a bitter chuckle. Seriously, man? You're really gonna turn away a baby? Your own family? You're not my family, I said. You never were. Marcy's eyes widened. You don't mean that. I do, I said. And I've been meaning it for a long time. They weren't expecting that. I could see it in their faces. They came here thinking they could guilt me into caving. They brought a newborn like a prop in a play. They probably rehearsed it in the car. Jason, my dad said, voice shaking just enough to be dramatic. You're acting like a stranger. This isn't who you are. You've always been the good one. I crossed my arms. No, I've always been the quiet one. Big difference. Marcy's tone turned sharp. We're not asking you to leave the cabin forever. Just transition. Let Dylan settle in, and you can find something more fitting. Fitting, I repeated. For someone like you, she added, before catching herself. And there it was. Get off my porch, I said. Dylan's jaw clenched. You're unbelievable. No, I said. I'm done being used. Marcy scoffed. So that's it. You're just going to slam the door on your own family. I'm going to lock it, I said. Then I stepped inside and shut it. They didn't even get a chance to reply. I waited, counted to 5. Then I heard it. The pounding on the door, the raised voices, the old script. Selfish, Marcy screamed. Ungrateful. I didn't respond. Instead, I picked up the phone and called the sheriff's non-emergency line. Hi, I've got some people trespassing on private property. Just want to make sure it's documented. The dispatcher was calm. We'll send someone by. 10 minutes later, I watched from the window as a cruiser pulled up and a young deputy stepped out. They left without a word. And that, finally, was the last time they tried to show up uninvited. This wasn't just a house anymore. It was a boundary, and I'd made damn sure they knew it was never, ever coming down. The day after the confrontation, I blocked all their numbers. Dad, Marcy, Dylan, even the landline from their condo. I deleted the old text chains, cleared my voicemail, and turned off message previews so I wouldn't even see the first words of the next guilt trip. Then I went outside and walked the property. The early spring sun was finally cutting through the cold, and the first wildflowers were pushing through the dead leaves near the tree line. I grabbed a rake from the shed and started clearing the front path. No music, no phone, just the crunch of gravel, the scrape of metal on stone, and the slow settling of my thoughts. It wasn't until later that week that I realized how quiet everything had become. Not just the cabin, but me, my head, my heart. No more looking over my shoulder for the next demand, the next manipulation disguised as family. I invited Rob and a couple of my close friends over that Friday night. Nothing fancy, just burgers on the grill, a cooler full of beer, and a fire pit that crackled under the stars. This place suits you, Rob said, stretching his legs by the fire. Always has. I nodded, poking the embers. Took me a while to realize I don't owe it to anyone but myself. The next morning, I put up a new mailbox at the end of the road. Just one name on it now. Mine. No trace of Turner. No space for shared ownership or family confusion. Just me, exactly the way my mother wanted it. Inside, I finally unpacked the last of her boxes, the ones I hadn't touched since she died. I found an old photo album, one she must have put together near the end. There were pictures of us on the porch swing, Mom in her garden hat, me barefoot with mud up to my knees. The last page had a short note in her handwriting. I hope this place gives you the peace I couldn't always give you myself. Protect it, Jason. It's yours. Always. I sat there for a long time, staring at those words, letting them settle into my bones. It wasn't about the cabin. Not really. It was about what it represented. A life built on my own terms. A love that didn't need to be repaid, because it had never come with a bill. That was the difference between Mom and the rest of them. She gave. They took. And I was finally done being taken from. Now, when I wake up to the sun filtering through the trees, there's no part of me waiting for the other shoe to drop. No dread in my stomach. No missed calls screaming for attention. Just stillness. And coffee. And birds at the feeder. I don't know what's next. Maybe I'll start volunteering again. Or finally build that greenhouse off the back porch. Maybe I'll just sit for a while and enjoy the silence. Whatever it is, I know this much. I'm ready. And I'm home.